Today we're making tails. Hey friends, welcome to my channel. As you might know, it is my dream to be an entertainer, so if you are at all entertained by this video, please like it and consider subscribing for more content. So with Turning Red coming out, a lot of people are sort of relating to May and her friends and are kind of more interested in tails. Tails and ears and stuff have always been around just out of, cat girls and anime, but it's also associated with furries. Now, I could do a whole video about furries. If you would like that, let me know down in the comments below. Long story short, being a furry just means that you like anthropomorphic depictions of animals. For example, if you liked Disney's The Lion King or Disney's Robin Hood or really any kind of Disney movie, then you are technically a furry. Get over it, okay? So yes, there are people out there who might be perverts or a little bit devious or however you'd like to describe it, but those people exist in every niche and fandom. It is not exclusive to furries. Just CSI and some other places made furries the joke, the butt of the joke. And so a lot of people associate very adult content with furries. Another thing is furries don't all dress up. So you could say all fursuiters are furries, but not all furries are fursuiters. A fursuit is that mascot costume that you might see people wearing. They might look like Pikachu if you've seen that really big one, or anyone at, again, at Disney World, Universal, those characters where you don't see a human face, it's actually a covering. That is a mascot costume, and if it's an animal of any sort, it's considered a fursuit. It really is. So it's a lot more prevalent in our society than people realize, because again, people only associate furries and fursuits with the nasty stuff that you've heard online, and that's just not true. Does it exist? Of course. But is it, rampant in the majority? No. So that being said, I actually have a friend whose niece is interested in the furry fandom and creating her own mascot costume. And so I thought it would be nice to kind of welcome her to the fold and make a tail for her, just kind of get her started and see if she likes it. And so I also thought that a lot of people out there might be interested or have children who are interested in making the tails as seen in Turning Red. So I'm not going to use the same color scheme, but this idea will kind of get you through how to make a Turning Red tail if you wanted to cosplay specifically from that, or make a red panda tail and ears. I'm not going to do the ears this time. If there is interest, I can. I have made ears in the past. I just don't typically prefer that kind of look, in my opinion. It's just my opinion. So, but if there is interest, of course, I can walk you through that as well. Now that was enough preamble, so let's go ahead and get started. Make sure you relax, stretch, and just kind of lay back. Put your troubles to the side and enjoy. Now, this one's going to be a little bit different. My B camera is out of commission. I forgot to deal with the batteries. So I'm going to switch, so you are only going to have a panning down, but that's okay because you don't really need to see my face for this. I think this is more of a tutorial type of approach, and it's going to be really easy, so don't worry about it at all. So the things that you will need are scissors, box cutter or razor blade, some sort of writing utensil, needles, paper. It can be craft paper. You can really tape together notebook paper. Doesn't have to be fancy. Assorted fabrics as desired. Stuffing, and to make things a lot easier, a sewing machine. However, as I've said in my other videos, you can hand sew this. It's just going to take a little bit longer. All right, so the first thing we need to do is create the pattern. If you want all of the guesswork to be taken out of it, I highly suggest Mugiwara Cosplay. She actually has a pattern for an entire fursuit if you're so inclined, and you can buy that straight off of Etsy. I'll put the link into the description below to help you out with that. So the first thing you have to consider is where it comes out of. Humans are naturally, anatomy is a little bit different than animals, but the concept is still very much the same. So this will come off of a belt. So we need an area that is flat that will go straight along on the belt. However, we don't want our tail sticking straight out. If this is a person, there's the hands and that's the feet, we don't want it sticking straight out, do we? We want it to bend down like an actual tail. So because of that, this is automatically going to curve a bit to get us away from the tush. Now, this part can be however design you'd like it, but with May, she is a red panda, so it's actually a bit poofy. I am actually going to add a tip to it because usually foxes and wolves are the most popular in young furries. I made this a little too bendy to when I showed you, so it really shouldn't bend that much. It's just essentially, it's going to flow a bit like that. Now that we have the basic shape of what we want, we're going to draw in how we would like the pattern to go. So the red panda has, I think she has 3 stripes. So we're going to make a stripe, right? And that's 1 stripe. I'm going to label this stripe. Then she's got a 2nd stripe. Stripe. Kind of looks like a raccoon tail. And instead of a 3rd stripe, I'm going to be a little cute and just make a tip of the tail white. Something you also have to consider is the way that the fur lays. So this is actually sideways. The person's going to wear it like this. So the fabric needs to go like that. This one will make it bend a little. So we've got 2 stripes and this is white. So I'm going to say this stripe is our teal. So this means that these other 3 pieces are our main color. So I'm just gonna say main. This is because we're about to cut this out and you need to know every color. So usually what people do when they draw patterns, they'll also make these little hash marks. And that's to indicate how to line it up at the end when you've got the pieces cut. These don't have to be perfect. The idea is that it's unique to these sections so that you can automatically line them up. Now, if you are great, at this, you don't need to do that part, but that's just kind of walking you through how to make a pattern. I will be right back. I'm going to cut all of this out and lay it out before you. All right, so it's all cut out. Full disclosure, I hated the original way that I did it, so I did redraw it. I am not a good pattern maker. I can customize it to what I need, but the actual base shapes I'm really bad at. So now what we're going to do is take each of these, and again, this makes up 1 side of the tail. So we're going to cut out each of these pieces. Then we're going to flip the entire pattern over and cut out those pieces as well. So you can think of it as cut 2, cut 2, cut 2, cut 2, cut 2, cut 2, right? Okay, let me show you what I mean. And we'll just use this little white piece because it's the easiest. I don't have it. You could also get I could make a whole thing on the quality of fur. Phil Harbor's a lot better at that than I am. But basically you can do this out of anything. You can even use felt or fleece. It's not really, it's open to you. So you can leave seam allowance if you want. If you don't, your tail will become a little bit smaller than you had drew it. So I'm not going to worry about it because, again, this is for a child. So I don't want it to be super, I want it to be a fun, big, floofy tail, but it doesn't have to be, super large. So then you take your box cutter, X-Acto knife, whatever you want to call this, and you're going to cut along here. And you just leave a little bit. That is the seam allowance, I guess. I just leave it so I don't cut the pattern. Now, why do we use this instead of scissors? Where do my scissors go? I'll show you. So when you cut a piece, let's do this. When you cut a piece with this, you only are cutting the part that is connected so that the underlings, the under fur is still there and you didn't cut it. But what happens if we want to cut it? We just cut that off. And now we lost that much fur. This much fur we lost. So it's just kind of a best practice. If you don't have any other way, yes, you can use scissors, but you don't have to press down as hard so you don't cut as much fur. So your pattern that you cut out, your fabric, can still retain as much fur as possible because this is not a real tail. So the fur won't grow back if you give yourself a haircut. Be very careful because this should be very soft. It should feel like cutting through like butter. There should not be any give. It does depend on the fabric type that you have. Oops, get out of here. Because some of them do, give a little bit. Ooh, see, I got too close and I cut my pattern. Some of them do give a little bit more of a give, but it shouldn't get stuck. You shouldn't be like gnawing at it. That means you need a new blade. So what happens now? Well, I've already cut one, but like I said, we need two. These are going to connect together. So that means I need to flip this so that I have a mirrored one so they can be sewn together. So you'll remember it's flipped because on one side you can read it and on the other side the writing is backwards and muted. But by this point we know what we're doing. So we're going to go ahead and still line this up, and it's just, I try not to use as much, waste any fabric if possible. You're always going to have a little bit of loose ends. If they're big enough, totally save them for the next project. You never know, especially something like white. It's a nice highlight color, but don't worry too much. You bought the fabric for a reason to do this one project, so you're gonna just assume that you're using it pretty much all for this project. Okay, see, now I cut that out. So now we have two of this pattern. So when I said cut two, this is what I meant, right? And I don't mean this to be condescending. It's just that sometimes it's difficult for people to envision. So I wanted to actually show you. You cut out one, you flip it, you cut out the other. And what does that mean? This is the tip, right? Yeah, it goes like this. This is the tip. So on this pattern, that's the end of the tail. So we're gonna sew it together so we have two sides. So this part, because this is this pattern, so this part is going to line up with purple, right? Yeah, it's this one, with the two purples. And we have the two whites. So I'm going to cut out the rest and I'll be right back. All right, now we have done it all. We do not need scissors. Well, we never needed the scissors really, but we don't need the X-Acto knife anymore. So now we get to play a simple puzzle game by putting it all together. Now, sometimes what I like to do is take a picture before I cut these out so I know where it goes. You could also mark them like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I didn't do any of that, yay. So, but I do know based on no hash marks and the way that this is the top, and I know that this is the bottom. So it's fairly easy to figure this out because it's going to go purple, teal, purple, teal. You can see that it also continues the shape. So it lets you know you're doing it right. And there we go. So now I am going to piece the strips together to make two pieces, and I'll show you what I'm talking about in just a second. All right, so apparently my camera is way heavier than my normal B camera. So I am going to hold this because it's been sliding and I don't know how much footage is usable. So I really hope it is still usable. But anyway, you can see that I have tacked down one side. And so this other side is still pieces. I just wanted to kind of show it to you so that you could really truly understand. So if I stand up, you can see the whole table. So you can see that there are two sides. So again, this forms one side of the tail. and the other one forms the other side of the tail. There are many different ways you can make tails. I am not saying this is the only way you can do it. My favorite is actually bendable, posable tails that use wire, and then you actually roll it up with batting. It's actually easier than this, less sewing involved. Well, not necessarily if you're going to have stripes. I can show you a tail that I made. But so this is a very standard, typical way to make a tail. And so I'm going to sew these lines together to make that one section. And then I'm going to sew them together to make one section. And then I'm going to sew along each of the sides with each other to make the tail. So I'll see you in just a second. So I'm not going to show the portion where I sewed it on the sewing machine. If you are interested in that and don't really know how to work a sewing machine, I am more than happy to make a follow-up video for that. But it's kind of straightforward if you've ever used a sewing machine. Just sew the two pieces together. All right, so as luck would have it, my sewing machine needle broke. It hit a bend just perfectly, so it snapped. So I actually had to finish this off by hand. So this is a different day, but I just wanted to go ahead and show you. So this is the end tail. So let me go ahead and walk you through what I did. So again, we had each of the separate pieces that we sewed all together. So these are the stripes, like I said, and there's actually a seam right here. You can see it a little bit better, I think, on the back. Actually, you can't really see the seam. So this was one side. This is the other side. So each of these were sewn separately, and then each two pieces were put together and sewn to create one. So I luckily have been making a tail for myself for a whole full suit, so I can show you on this one because I have not finished. So these are the two pieces. I sewed here, right, and here. So it's identical, it's just mirrored. And then I sewed here, you can see the seam. So that is what I am talking about. So that pattern that we cut out, and then we cut out with the seams, we sewed all those seams together, so we had the pattern, and then we have two versions of the pattern that we sewed right sides together so that it can be a tail. So once you get to this point, you then flip it inside out. And I always reach back in, make sure the tippy tip is pointy. All right, so that's what it looks like. You can, or you should, brush it out. You can actually use a pet brush. If you don't have one, you can use one of those very thin, like pinpointed kind of brushes, or even a comb. Just be very loose and light. Remember, the objective is not to actually like pull out, you know, the dead hair or whatever, because it's all fake. This is all synthetic. So you're just trying to make sure that it is smooth, because sometimes, like the other one, it can get kind of crinkly when it's just sitting there in a box. So you have the good side out. Then you will still have this little hole here. You stuff it until it's nice and thick, and then you sew that down. And so once right now it looks flat, so it looks like, you know, very much, you know, like in half. But once you actually stuff it all the way, you can see it actually rounds out. So you don't have that anymore. And so once you get to this point, so this is going out, this will be along your bottom and legs. So up on the top, let's see if I can get this, there we go. So this is the seam that I was telling you about on this little hole where you stuffed it. So you stuff it all up at the top, and then you get two elastics and measure, or in this case I couldn't measure, but I just estimated a belt size for the two elastics. So what's gonna happen is you put your belt loop through that as you put it on your pants, and it hangs off of your pants. So it's pretty simple, and it's It's lightweight. It has heft to it because it's actually a lot of stuffing, but it's easy, and then it'll kind of swing as you kick it with your legs. And so there you go. Here's your turning red tail. As I said before, there are a lot of different tail variations you can do, and with that, there are also a lot of different variations you can do in terms of attaching it to your pants. Sometimes I actually will just completely sew on elastic so it'll slide up. I do that on very specific mascot costumes, not all of them. It helps either give more bounce or just stay on because I don't want a heavy belt underneath it. So again, there's a lot of wiggle room here to really customize it to what you want and what is most comfortable for you. You can also forego the elastic and just use really big safety pins and safety pin it to your pants or a dress if you don't want to have like a belt. So again, a lot of wiggle room there, but this is basically how you make a tail. Thank you so much for watching. Please, again, consider subscribing for more content. I really love these type of videos, so I will be making more of, pop culture cosplay accessories. Maybe not a full costume, but the accessories that go with it. Remember that you are loved, you are worthy, and whatever you are struggling with today will pass. Until next time, stay crazy.